start with, okay, we're going into the summer season here. A lot of people headed to
Mhm.
the beach, maybe perhaps for the first time, but also some people headed to the beach for the 4 millionth time, and they're very confident in their beach skills.
Right.
There's a lot of emphasis put on rip currents and the safety about
Mhm.
rip currents, but there's a lot of other hazards out there other than rip currents in the ocean, correct?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I think that some of the other hazards, from large breaking waves to just nearshore conditions that have been really impacted by strong winds or weather changes, submerged objects. You look at one of the drills lifeguards work on the most is spinal cord injuries. People coming out of a wave or diving into the ocean and having a traumatic injury. I mean, rip currents are a thing, but they're also very localized. And in most cases, while they can be very fast and very strong, in most locations, if you don't have a lot of wave and water moving around, they won't be that strong. But we see a lot of people just literally going into the ocean and getting over their head. Even early season on the Jersey Shore, going into 55-degree water can greatly incapacitate someone if, say, they're fishing off the end of a jetty and fall into cold water. It's a little turbulent, a little choppy. Even if there's not a rip current anywhere near them, they can quickly find themselves in kind of a panic situation, getting pushed into dangerous conditions.
Yeah, I've heard you mention like sneaker waves or shore breaks.
Mhm.
I had never heard of those. Can you explain what
Really?
those are? Yes, I don't know what a sneaker wave is.
There you go. So when we were developing the Wave Safe series with the National Weather Service, we had the opportunity to talk to weather forecasting offices around the country and talk to their communicators and go, what are the things that are impacting visitors at your beaches? And sneaker waves are something that are a big thing in the Pacific Northwest. It's basically a wave that is coming up much higher and much further up the beach than other waves. So it's almost like a large wave within a set of waves. And what will happen is people will be walking along the rocky coastlines in the Pacific Northwest, and a large wave will come sweeping 50, 100 meters further up the beach than anything else. And that cold water and the power of that wave surging up and then surging back out again will take people off their feet and drag them out into the water. And a sneaker wave is something that a larger wave can happen anywhere, but it is a phenomenon very prevalent and very much addressed by the forecasting offices in the Pacific Northwest. If you look at shore break, that other thing you were talking about, shore break is a breaking wave, but a wave that's breaking on a very steep shoreline. So now you're looking at the bathymetry of what's going on under the water. So if you're on a beach like we have behind us in Ocean City, New Jersey, most of the beaches are relatively flat and it's a pretty gradual incline out into the water. There are exceptions, there's gullies, and that changes too with the tides. But if you go to a few other beaches, Hawaii being one, Delaware, there's a beach known to be really steep. When those waves jack up, they come right down really hard on a surface that's much closer to vertical. So if someone's body surfing or kind of riding that wave, it's not easy or it's not too hard for them to kind of get pitched up. And all of a sudden now they're looking at traumatic spinal cord injuries, shoulder injuries, so acute trauma that could then also lead to a drowning experience.
You say drowning experience, and we talk a lot about ocean fatalities, but there's something to be said about ocean injuries too, right?
Yes. Yeah. And what a lot of people may not realize is drownings are not necessarily fatal. There are fatal and non fatal drownings. There is a study that Life Saving Society Canada did that showed for every one fatal drowning, there were 3.6 or 3.7 hospitalizations from near fatal drownings. So, drownings that were severe enough that they required an emergency room or hospital visit. If you look at the CDC, just for drownings as a whole, this would include pools and lakes and oceans. For every one fatality, there are 7 people that have to go into the hospital for an emergency care or long term care because of the impacts of that drowning event. And so, yeah, so the numbers of people impacted by drowning is much larger than when you just look at fatalities. And then if you look at traumatic injuries, even in rescues, shoulder dislocations, concussions, spinal cord injuries, abrasions on rocks and submerged objects, there's a lot of trauma that can definitely end a vacation day, if not have a significant impact for a long period of time, requiring a lot of of rehabilitation, just because you weren't aware of some of the dangers at the shore.
Right. And you also mentioned about, there's the people that get hurt or perhaps drown out there swimming, but the people who are going out to rescue them, whole new hazard, correct? So tell
Right.
me the steps I should take if I see someone in trouble out of the ocean.
Well, one of the phrases you'll hear is second victim drownings. And one phrase that I heard that really captured a lot of it, a friend in Denmark called it drowning for love, where someone that you're close to or know, father, mother, husband, wife, brother, sister, the emotional attachment has someone go in there to save them or help them. And often that person will become a tragic second victim. And what we tell people, and they can find this in the Wave Safe series under the Take 10 call to action. And Take 10 is really kind of pulled from the same thing that a first responder would be told. You first stop before you go charging into the water. A lifeguard on a stand will stop. They will alert their stand mates. They'll call over the radio. They'll activate the emergency response system. They'll grab a rescue can, and then they'll go into the water. All of this in 5 to 10 seconds. But they're assessing the situation so that they can get to the victim prepared to help stabilize them or getting back out of the surf. And so even someone who's not a lifeguard, one, if you're not a trained professional lifeguard and you have the right equipment and support, if someone's in a dangerous situation, chances are that's a pretty dangerous situation. Too often it's like a yellow or red flag day, and people that aren't familiar with the power of waves and currents can quickly get into trouble. Going into the ocean should always be a last resort. But with the Take 10 initiative, we're telling people stop first, pause and assess the situation. Call 911, alert a lifeguard if there's one back beach or someone down at another beach, or have someone else call 911. Look for something that floats or something like a rope or a towel that will allow you to reach or assist the person while you stay safe. And if nothing else, a lot of times people, if they're encouraged to relax, can float on their back. So if you're able to provide assistance to them, maybe keep them calm, signal to them that help is coming, tell them to relax, stay on their back while you stay safe. Hopefully we end the day with everyone having a traumatic experience, but everyone's going back home to their family and they're able to come to the beach on another day.
All right, so this is all very scary. But your campaign is about ocean positivity, right? So
Right, yeah.
what does the ocean have to offer us? Why should we get in the water?
So we started the Ocean Positive Foundation with the mission statement, and every part of this is really specific. We want to positively impact how everyone feels, thinks, and acts towards our oceans and our communities. I originally got involved in this ocean world working with the National Marine Sanctuary Program, which is the organization in NOAA that oversees marine protected areas. These amazing parks that are underwater or on the shoreline, and these amazing things that you can see in these locations. And there's something about going to the beach. I mean, hundreds of millions of people in the US alone, go to the beach. And what you can see and experience and its impact on health and mental well-being of being on or near the water or being with friends and family on and near the water is almost incalculable. Yeah, you can look at the economic impact of having healthy oceans and healthy beaches and communities going there, but just from an internal personal feeling of who doesn't get excited about going to the beach. And what we want to do is make sure that you've got a lifetime of those positive experiences. And the collateral trauma of seeing someone in trouble or experiencing a rescue or a drowning event really can shape not just that individual, but in some of the areas we've worked, it can have an impact on generations. A parent will pass that fear or concern about the ocean to their children. So I think it's really key that as we encourage people to, like the National Marine Sanctuary says this summer, get into your sanctuaries, go and experience these amazing places. But we also want to make sure that they have the tools and knowledge to make sure they do that safely, whether it's knowing about large breaking waves or wildlife or cold temperatures. So we want to make sure that you got a lifetime of positive experiences and you got a lot of people around you to enjoy that as well.
Cool. And my kids are fearless. They walk into the water. How can I educate my kids, and how can we learn more about the right way to walk in, get out, and how to deal with a stressful situation where you might react with fear?
I think that's great. I think that um, all of our programs are really focused on they're strength based, empowering individuals to control what they can. And that's their perception of the ocean. That's how they respond to situations. It's also educating them on what they see and what they know to look for. And one of the things we talk about with young children and parents being aware of this, that, for, late teens or early adults, their risk taking, the way their brain is developing, the way they're analyzing risk taking behavior and making decisions is not the same as like their parent may be making. So often around the ocean situations for older teens, you may need to step in and go, look, I know it doesn't seem like this is very risky, but as your father, as your mother, this is too risky for me. Humor me. Let's not do this, and kind of educate them at the same time of this is why this could be dangerous. And with younger children, often a 1 to 2 foot wave that wouldn't even register for you or for me, that's maybe knee high, even small breaking surf for a 2 or 3 year old or 4 year old can quickly knock them off their feet and pull them into a dangerous situation. If you've got a gully of only a couple of feet of water, that's enough to create a drowning scenario for a young child 2 or 4 years old. Even slightly older than that, if the wind and water conditions are kind of challenging near shore, I've seen children on boogie boards or on floats get blown further out into the ocean, not because of a rip current, but because there's a 10 to 15 mile an hour wind blowing offshore. And those kids may not be able to generate enough force to swim themselves back in. In fact, a large number of the kind of assists or rescues I've had have been kids that have gotten pushed out too far and they can't get back in through, the waves and the surf. And it's not rip currents, it's just, winds pushing them out, or they just aren't aware of how far out they've gone. Because for a lot of us, it's hard to judge distances over the water. There's a lot of things that we're used to walking down the street or running across a field that's very, very different when all of a sudden now your eyes are at water level and you don't have that 5 foot advantage of, seeing over everything. And so often, swimmers will head out in the ocean and they go, oh, wow, I had no idea it was this big. All of a sudden they're out there and they're like, this is not what I expected it to be. And so you imagine on a young child, that can get to be a pretty terrifying experience pretty quickly. We tell parents at the beach, whether it's a preteen or young adult, make sure you've got eyes on them at all times. And if it's a really young child, really arm's reach. And I know as a lifeguard, one of the things I really appreciate is the parents with their 2, 3, and 4 year olds. When the kids go down to the water, the parents go to the water's edge right there with them because they're staying right there. Because the lifeguards are watching the whole crowd. They're not, babysitting one child. I mean, they're kind of scanning for everything. And, I've seen, young children, they can have a pretty traumatic, scary experience that may not be life-threatening, but could still be really traumatic for them. And I think that that's a role parents can play, is know what can be dangerous to kids at varying ages and be ready to intervene before a lifeguard has to get involved. Because once a lifeguard's involved, now you're looking at possibly a pretty traumatic experience that could be pretty scary for everyone.
All right, that's all I have. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I think that's it. I think that it is important that people really, we really boiled down as we looked at all these different places around the country and what you need to know visiting these different locations. We boiled down to 3 things: a philosophy, which is respect the ocean, both from a conservation standpoint and a safety standpoint. Respect the ocean, respect the environment. It's a dynamic, changing environment that can change minute to minute, day to day. A mindset, situational awareness. Be aware of what's going on around you. Yes, you're on vacation, but when your vacation involves the shoreline, be aware of what's going on. The people, the weather, the water, stay aware. And finally, the action, take 10. Don't become a tragic second victim, and know how to respond if you see someone in trouble.
If you like this content, you'll love our podcast. Check out Off the Radar. You can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts, or click the link in the description of this video.